there guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero Show with me, your host Simon Conboy. Today's episode is a game review of last night's very good Thursday night football matchup between the Eagles and the Panthers, with the visiting Eagles coming away victorious in a battle of 4-1 teams with a 28-23 victory. Glad to see that this game lived up to the hype after some really bad Thursday games. It's traditionally not the best night, which I guess you can understand with short weeks and always some ugly matchups, but that will happen when you feature all 32 teams over the course of the season. But yeah, really enjoyed this one. Eagles deserved victors, I thought, and as always I'm going to go through my takes from the game, how I think both teams looked to attack this one, how they adjusted, how things generally went, and where things go from here. So I'll start with what I think was really one of the key aspects of this game, the struggles of the Carolina rushing attack continuing. They were made utterly one-dimensional, unless you include Cam Newton's runs in there. A few designed ones, but a lot of them were ad-libbed as a result of pretty good coverage. The Eagles secondary doing a very good job in this game, and it made the Panthers very one-dimensional. Certainly made the Eagles' life a lot easier, allowed them to pin their ears back, and once again the offensive line for the Panthers wasn't up to the task, pass blocking or run blocking. This front line was absolutely exceptional. I mentioned in the preview show that Fletcher Cox's presence would be huge. He ended up playing, and his impact on the game was significant. He was absolutely dominant. This one-dimensional attack ended up being, I think, a major downfall of the Panthers in this one. Really, the second half, it ended up being close, and yeah, they could have stole the game at the end, but it felt like the Eagles were very much in control of that second half. They just weren't quite able to sort the game away at the end. But Cam had a bit of an off day. His receivers let him down. They struggled to get open for much of this game. Kelvin Benjamin had a few nice grabs, but other than that, you just saw receivers downfield covered for the vast majority of the game. Of course, didn't have much time to throw, so there was an inability to attack the Eagles deep. And one of the things I mentioned in the preview, and it's why I thought the Panthers would win, I thought they'd have more of a run game than this. They'd be able to attempt some deep shots. I'm not surprised, with the way the game went, that they weren't able to attempt many, and you'd figure if they had to just play a straight up passing game, that would be the case. And as a result, they just weren't able to hit those big plays downfield that have been so successful for them in the last couple of weeks. And I think the Eagles' defence played really well. It started up front. The amount of depth in this front seven, particularly at the defensive line position, really helps them. Bo Allen's a solid rotational piece to have behind Cox and Jernigan. Jernigan's playing very well. It's one of the best 1-2 punches at tackle in the league right now. Brandon Graham's having another fine season. You've got Barnett. Chris Long is a good, nice option to have coming off the bench. I thought the linebackers were really good in this game, and especially Nigel Bradham. He definitely flashed watching the game, both in coverage and against the run. One thing that did stand out, both teams doing a pretty exceptional job tackling throughout this game, which is always good to see. You see good defences, they tend to tackle well, and both of these units are very good. The Eagles' defence backs played really well, came up with 3 picks, and it could have been more. Cam was somewhat careless with the ball throughout this game. Part of it being his guys were just covered really well, so there were a lot of tips. Had to squeeze the ball into some tight windows over the course of this one. And at the end of the game, I think after Cam made the big dive to try and get into the end zone, which I've got to criticise the Panthers for challenging that. You've got 1st and goal at the 1. It's a critical time in the game. The game is close. I don't think you challenge that. There was nothing to indicate they were going to overturn it. I thought that was a poor decision, and they score easily on the next play. Not that you know that's going to happen, but I think you've got to have enough confidence that your offense can score from 1 yard out with potentially 4 attempts. And I think it would have been 4 attempts at that stage in the game. So that I thought was a bad move. Timeout could have ended up being significant. So yeah, question that one. After that, I just thought Cam at that point just made some poor throws, maybe aggravated the shoulder a little. But over the course of this game, yeah, just some horrible decisions. I mean, could have thrown an interception on the first drive. There's 4 that I've got here that I think could easily have been interceptions that I've noted down. There was one at the end of the game. It was an easy pick that was dropped. Another one with about 3 minutes to go. That could easily have been. And there was one where interception that was called back for a pass interference. That should have been the pick. It was a poor defensive play to have the interference on it. It was an underthrown ball into double coverage. The corner who committed the interference really didn't end up impacting the play too much, so that should have been another. Unlucky on the Jonathan Stewart one to start the second half. That one's on Stewart. Just an easy catch that he tips up into the air and straight to a defender. Patrick Robinson will, I'm sure, be grateful for that one come contract time. And yeah, the last one I can forgive. You know, you're in and a couple of those efforts toward the end. Oh, that was a poor throw. But we saw some. There was a spell where Cam got hot in this game, but it was all very short. The thing I question most with the Panthers' offensive game plan in this one was how compact they kept everything. It wasn't until the fourth quarter where they started spreading the field, and I feel they should have been doing that earlier. They weren't able to produce any kind of rushing lanes, and that's because when you've got the field, you know, a lot of it was receivers on one side and then a big old slab of meat in the middle of the field. It allows the Eagles to have an 8th guy in the box almost for free, and as a result the penetration was there and it was constant and instant. A lot of these runs, especially the outside runs, I mean, whether it was McCaffrey, whether it was Stewart, they were buried instantly. The only run-in that this team got was from Cam, and he was effective doing it. But they need to get that sorted, otherwise this team is going to be pretty easy to defend. This O-line absolutely has to step up. And it was a big difference maker in this game, because whilst both teams were able to generate a ton of pressure, the big difference was that Carolina were able to do it almost exclusively rushing 4 guys, whereas the Panthers were very blitz happy, as they have been for a large portion of this year. But I think it makes a big difference, and Cam just struggled with the amount of guys in coverage and the lack of support. I think the way this game ended up going, and the Panthers had to try and find a way to get the run game going, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of creativity there. It was if it's Jonathan Stewart, the odds are it's just going up the gut. If it's Christian McCaffrey, and he's not getting nearly enough carries at the moment. I think we're not getting an opportunity to see who he could be as a runner at this point. Not that I think the running backs are necessarily to blame too much. I mean, they're not breaking tackles, but they're not even getting a chance to get going, particularly in this game. Just getting the ball and getting hit instantly, it's just not good enough. And again, if you're going to compare it to what the Eagles did at the line of scrimmage, I think Wentz had a bit more freedom to check out plays, or demonstrated it, and their success for the most part came from when they could see the Panthers in soft coverages, dropping linebackers back, and it was LeGarrette Blount getting through holes that were created against the 4-man front, hitting the second level and being able to pick up yardage that way. Whereas every time the Panthers run, it felt like the Eagles knew what was coming and were just in the backfield instantaneously. They absolutely got to shore that up, otherwise good teams, good defences in particular, are gonna feast on this team. The receivers, whilst they've played well the last few weeks, Cam's made it easy for them at times. He has been on fire. In this one, he wasn't quite as sharp, but the pressure did get to him. I think in the fourth quarter you could see it was rushing some of his throws, wasn't going through his reads as efficiently as you'd like to see, particularly a quarterback who's been in the league as long as he has at this point. It was just a result of being hit so much. He was lit up over the course of this game. Oh yeah, the first pick, that was Fletcher Cox, who said if he's playing, he's going to have a big impact. He's just a game wrecker, just manhandling Trey Turner into Cam Newton to give the rookie Rasul Douglas an easy pick that set up 7 points. But this first half was very even. Both teams capitalising off of mistakes from the other team to get touchdowns, a couple of field goals. I thought one of the better executed and well played first halves. I thought the Eagles did a much better job adjusting to the kind of pressure that the Panthers were bringing in the second half. Kept a few more guys in, used the slot receiver a bit more effectively, and they were able to run the ball, which certainly helped. Whereas the Panthers, just until the fourth, when they started operating out some more 4 receiver sets, it felt very stagnant. Unable to hit anything out wide for the most part. Kelvin Benjamin really the only guy who contributed. Christian McCaffrey had a few of his short passes. That's basically what he is at this point in the offense. It just looks like he's Darren Sproles, which is he should be more than that. I don't necessarily agree with the way they're utilising him entirely, but it is what it is. I think this was a bit of a fall back to earth for this offense because it does have flaws and it does start up front, and they need to find a way to start getting Curtis Samuel involved because I just think he offers a bit more explosion at the wide receiver position. He's been almost a non-factor thus far this season after a very truncated training camp and pre-season. Conversely, on the other side of the ball, the Eagles struggled early on, I think, with pass protection. They managed to get it together, I think, dissect more what the Panthers were doing. Shaq Thompson was a free blitzer so often in this game, it was crazy. He managed to make a good few plays as a result, but the second half, the pressure was significantly lessened. Of course, one of the big plays early in the game was the huge strip sack by Julius Peppers that set up the first Panthers score. But other than that, this defence kind of struggled to have too many impact plays beyond a couple of sacks. Managed to stifle the run game. I wouldn't say they shut it down, but they did a good enough job there. And as mentioned previously, I think the Eagles did a good job in using the run game when you could see the team not blitzing. Did a good job calling outside of those situations. Blunt ran the ball well, as always. When he gets ahead of steam, he's just a very dangerous player. If you can get to him in the backfield, he's probably not going to make too many guys miss. Did a great job spreading the ball around. Their guys were able to win the one-on-one matchups. You didn't see too many balls forced from Wentz. He kept things reined in this game, and that ended up being a big difference maker. His ability to protect the ball was pretty good. I think he did struggle a little bit with the blitz in terms of his reads, particularly in the first half, which is why the Panthers were able to get to him so often, just not setting the protection to deal with a free rusher or not expecting the guy to be a free rusher, and as a result getting sacked with not too much hard work being done by the defence other than calling the blitz in the first place. Zach Ertz, they kept him quiet in this one. The Panthers always do a good job on the tight ends, but I like the way he was used on both of the touchdowns. The first one was just a case of, after the turnover, Wentz had run the ball on the previous play. He's a threat to run the ball, and on a goal and 1 to go, there's always a good chance Garrett Blunt's going to get it. I think the linebackers were assuming and playing to stop a run play. As a result, Ertz managed to get free at the back of the end zone in one-on-one coverage, and the linebackers were way too close to the line of scrimmage to have any kind of impact on the play. And normally that's the kind of play you'd see Kuechly dropping back and having an impact in coverage. Surprised when Kuechly actually went down in this one that Ertz wasn't more involved. Thought that was going to be a thing, but it wasn't. But the second touchdown, this is one of the best plays Wentz has made all year, in my opinion. Brilliantly commentated. It was all about the eye discipline. He knew he had Ertz one-on-one, kept away from him with his eyes, looking to the opposite side of the field, and then just waiting until Ertz had the depth to get into the end zone, and just threw a nice high point ball for him. Borderline impossible to defend. Good execution. Great touchdown. Similar stuff with... In fact, I'll go through Cam's second touchdown. That one. The goal-to-go situation, just a little pick play on the left-hand side. Christian McCaffrey wide open. Easy stuff. And what was the third Wentz touchdown? Yes. Terrible matchup for the Panthers defence. Was it Shaq Thompson? It was, I believe. Shaq Thompson out in the slot against Nelson Aguilar, who just burns him for speed on a slant, as you would expect a quality slot receiver, which he has absolutely become this season to do, and just runs into the end zone, bordering untouched. So that play really did feel like it was going to end the game. It was hard to see this Panthers offense picking up chunks of yardage through the air in this one. My one issue with the Eagles' game plan, and it's been a bit of an issue all year, is it feels like they're struggling to connect on the outside, and part of it is, I think, a lack of chemistry and understanding between the two outside receivers, Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey and Carson Wentz. I don't feel like the trust is there yet. It feels like just about every throw is going over the middle of the field, and teams have got to start recognising that. It was definitely the case in this game, other than a couple of shots down the field to Alshon Jeffrey, one of which he came up with was a huge series of, huge two plays, I think, in this game that basically ended up winning them the game. Massive momentum swing. But I think they need to start finding a way to get those guys involved down the field. Once again, part of it was pressure. Both teams did not have many opportunities to go deep because of the heat the quarterbacks were under. But I do feel in the second half in particular that Wentz could have had some more opportunities to exploit those matchups, although Bradbury did a fantastic job on Alshon Jeffrey on the few throws that were attempted at him. The big thing for me, the quality of the Eagles' offensive line. That's an enormous factor in this one. It allowed them to run the ball more effectively, and Wentz certainly had a lot more time in the pocket than Cam, and was able to scramble more, out of when a play was breaking down, rather than because he was running for his life, which is how some of Cam's felt, even if they did end up being fairly successful plays, which is often the case. Dangerous runner with the football. But the Eagles' defensive line depth really outstanding in this one. Obviously, Kuechly going missing certainly, I think, hurt this defence towards the end of the game. Missing Lane Johnson was clearly huge. Noticed it immediately with Julius Peppers getting the strip sack against the backup. But once he's back, this is one of the top lines in the league. Wentz has had great protection all year. It's probably as much as he's been hit all season. So can't criticise the Panthers defence too much for this loss. I think they played a pretty solid game overall. It's just the offence at times struggling to stay on the field and putting them in some bad spots that ended up being the difference. Cam's decision making took a significant step backwards over the last couple of weeks. Both quarterbacks struggled to throw outside the numbers in this one, and I'm going to put it down to the pass rush and also the way the team seemed to scheme for this game. But it felt to me like the Eagles made adjustments in the second half and tried to get more quick throws, get it out of Wentz's hands. It wasn't necessarily enormously successful, but it managed to preserve the quarterback, and Cam, to me, looked a bit shell-shocked by the end of this one. Also, the Cam Newton touchdown run, just to go for that one, absolutely no contain on a run-pass option. I don't know how you have no contain against Cam, especially when you're shutting down the run game as effectively as you are. I don't think you need the defence end to crash down the line of scrimmage like that. And Cam in the open field, going to make a guy miss more often than not, I think, in that situation, especially against a DB. But yeah, I think this game was won by the adjustments the Eagles made in the second half. They managed to run the ball more effectively in the right situations. I think, especially when Keekly went down, the Panthers maybe had a little bit more of a rein in terms of when they were blitzing and they were behind, maybe not trying to give up a big play that could have ended up being the difference. But yes, the 3rd and 16 towards the end of the third quarter that Wentz managed to convert over the middle of the field after eluding pressure. That was huge. I mean, they would have been punting on the next play. Panthers getting the ball at midfield for an opportunity to take the lead. Managed to make the conversion. The next play hit Alshon Jeffrey for really the one big deep pass of the game. And a couple of plays later, they were celebrating the game-winning touchdown at the start of the fourth quarter. So, yeah, I think that was an absolutely huge moment in this one. A couple of big penalties in this game. One that negated a pick and one that set up that second touchdown for the Panthers. So Eagles got to avoid those stupid penalties. They could have really come back to bite them, and had the Eagles lost this game, those two plays would have been absolutely enormous for me. And anything else I got noted down here? No, that's about it. So yeah, I think Eagles deserved winners in this game. They're playing really well on both sides of the ball at the moment. If Wentz can continue to play and develop in this vein, they're going to be a massive threat to anybody they face, particularly when they get... Damn it, how can I forget the danged corner's name? Fellow they traded for from Buffalo. Once they get him back, the secondary should be better. I thought they played quite well tonight. They will be tested more. I'm still not a huge fan of the Panthers group of receivers. It certainly needs Samuel to step up and give his team a bit of speed, but until this offensive line improves, it's going to be hard to view them as a high-end threat in the NFC, and it's going to cost them against teams that can rush the passer like the Eagles can. And I think there's a couple of teams in the division that have shown they may well be capable of doing that. And I don't think you can play this imbalanced unless you've got a Packers type receiving group and quarterback combo. Moving forward, the Eagles are looking very, very good in the NFC East at the moment. Of course, the Giants are non-factor for the rest of the season. You'd have to almost certainly. The Cowboys at 2-3, and this Ezekiel Elliott situation could end up having him miss some games. You'd have to think it's going to be tough for them to catch up with the Eagles if that's the case. The Redskins, without Josh Norman, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare. But the Eagles certainly have the opportunity to pull away within the division. You have to think if they can take care of their divisional matchups, they're going to be heavily, way out in front. But they have to be heavy favourites to win that division at this point, and they certainly look like they could be a threat to take home field advantage into the playoffs. Even this early in the year, they're looking good, and Lane Johnson should be back soon. They'll only be better once that's the case. In terms of their matchups coming up, who have they got? Big game next up, the Redskins. That's going to be huge. If they can win that one, they'll have a big lead at the top of the division. Then they've got the Niners after that, and you'd expect them to win that one handily, followed by a couple of big games for the Broncos and Cowboys. If they can go 3-1 in those games, and one of those wins is against the Skins, you'd have to think they're going to be in a great spot. So that Redskins game, absolutely enormous, and I think, especially with Josh Norman out, they're going to have a good shot in that one. As for the Panthers, this was a bit of a fall back to earth. The flaws in this team that we were all aware of showing up in this one. Got the Bears next week. They should be able to get back on track in that one. Then a couple of really big divisional games against the Buccaneers and Falcons. They could end up looming large in this one. Those two teams, for me, probably the biggest threats to the Panthers within the division. So I think they'll be able to get back on track against the Bears, and then we'll see how they do in those next two games. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on this game. a lot of credit to the Eagles. They look really good in this one, doing a good job spreading the ball around. Just want to see a few more impact plays from those big name receivers. But great job, especially considering how Zach Ertz was kept very, very quiet in this one. Both of these teams look like high-end defensive units, so they should be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. Let us know, what do you think of the game? Is there any specific things you think I missed or you want to discuss? Give us a shout. We've got the comment section, the Cover Zero Facebook page. You can find me on Twitter at Simon Conboy. Always happy to talk football. Got more episodes coming up, as always, previews, reviews. Next week we'll be doing the live Cover Zero roundtable. Check that one out. They're always fun to do, as long as we don't have technical issues like we did this week. And a bit of Bucks talk and Titan talk next week with me and Arnie as usual. So if you could like, share, subscribe, check out the Patreon, it'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure as always. Have a great evening and go Bucks.